Hello, I'm Felix Blume. I'm a sound artist, a sound engineer, a field recorder, and I'm French, and I'm here in Florida at the Canaveral National Seashore for the residency of ACA Soundscape Field Station for this year 2021. What inspired my interest in sound at the very beginning, I think it was probably the music, because I was playing music until I was 18, and when I had to choose something to study to, I study sound, mainly sound for concert at the beginning, and then I've been studying like in a film school, sound for film, and at some point when I start doing recording sound, I stop playing music, and I think sound takes this place that music left. And in a way, I like this idea of listening to the sound, maybe in a musical way, or maybe in a way that you could be just contemplative and just listening. I think the act of listening is much more than about sound. Actually, at the beginning, I've had my own practice to not only like a sound engineer, but then when it became like personal project, I was mainly thinking that sound was the main goal or the main materials that I was using for my work. But then at some point I realized that maybe more than sound, it was more this idea of listening. And I like this idea of listening because it's go further than sound. I mean, you have this idea of listening when you are in this idea of understanding the other, to understanding the surroundings, to understanding who you are listening to. And this idea that the listening act is not a passive act. It's not that you're here and you're just receiving all the sound that's around you. I think the act of listening could really become active, and when you're really listening to something, when you're really listening to somebody, then you have an active receiver. As a microphone are a receiver, I like the idea that a listener could be like a receiver. And then of course you could be a good listening, or you could listen through all the gear, all the microphones, all the computer or a recorder that we could have that could like maybe give another experience of the listening act, but you don't really need all those gear, all those equipment to listen. And actually only with the two ears that we have with us, we are able to listen. And that's something that I like, that this idea of listening is quite simple. It's something that most of us have, the possibility, and it's something that's easy to share with somebody. It's just saying, okay, just take a moment, take a few minutes, a few hours, and just listen. And I think that's something that's kind of easy to share, easy to understand, and doesn't need a lot of background, doesn't need a lot of gear, doesn't need a lot of explanation. When I arrived to Canaveral National Seashore to be part of the residency, my proposal was to share this listening experience in the park with the people who are used to come to the park, who are visitors, who are inhabitants or rangers or workers, or just people living close by and they used to go to the park. So my idea was not only to discover the park through my experience of listening, but mostly to understand how people from the neighborhoods would listen to their own park, or would listen to their own places. So the invitation was pretty easy. It's just pick up a place in the park, go there, and we'll share a listening experience. I will be there sharing it. I will be just close to the listener, listening with him or with her to the sound. But this experience will be recorded on camera, and then you would be able online to be in front of those listening people and just listening with them. So of course, when I arrive to a place that I don't know, I like to understand what are the sounds that I could find, what I could record or listen to. But I like the idea to know how the people are listening. And of course, if I make this question somebody randomly, I would just say, how are you listening? Most of the people will just say, well, I'm listening the same thing as you with my ear. I'm listening what's around, well, the same thing as you. And of course, this listening experience is very different. It's very subjective. It depends a lot from one person to another. It depends a lot of what we are focusing on, what we or our brain is thinking it's a noise or it's not. For example, just a car passing by, maybe I will say, well, that's not the sound I'm interested in right now, because I'm interested just in the voice of the interview. But at the same time, the car passed by, and so we could listen to it or we couldn't, or we could just say, is that noise, or that's interesting, or that's something that I will listen to. So of course this listening experience will be each time very different, and one of the ways to understand how people is listening is just to say, okay, what the place I would like to listen, and then during this listening experience that we could share, what can we listen to, what are the sounds you find interesting, what are the sounds that you find were not, and what are the sounds maybe that's like part of the identity of the place. And that's something that I really enjoy in general when I have the opportunity to travel somewhere or to discover a place. It's not only to listen and to discover the sound of the place, but to listen to those places through the people who are living there. So through all those experiences of listening, I've been, of course, surprised about different reaction of the people. I think one of things that surprised me, which was from the listener but from the sound itself too, it was the sound of the ocean. Because I mean, you generally think like, I've been listening to the ocean, I've been listening to the waves or the sea, but you don't imagine all the variation of sounds that the ocean could do. And the sound of the ocean was very, very different depending one day or to the other. It was, I mean, it could be depending on the tide, depending of the wind, depending of the strongest of the wind, but of the direction of the wind. The sound was always very different, and the way of listening to it was always very different. You will have like person who just look at the ocean, and it's like a way to maybe look at the horizon, to look somewhere, and maybe to look at themselves, or to look at them, I mean, to think about themselves, to be more like thinking about them. And some others will mostly like be looking at the ocean, but looking to the other places while they're listening to other things that could happen, to birds, to something that could come from the air, or just to look at the different waves. So you really have like different ways of listening to it, and this possibility to be listening with them is mostly through the face which is listening. I like this thing that Marcel Duchamp was saying, that you can view at somebody viewing, or you can watch at somebody watching, but you can't listen at somebody listening. And that's true, you can't really listen. If you listen to a recording of the same people listening, you probably won't listen to the listener because it's not doing any sound. But what you can do is to watch at somebody listening. And then you will, I think, experience a big part of the listening experience, because you're listening with him. You're watching as him while, or her, but while you're listening to what is not on camera. You're listening to what is viewing or what is watching. So that's something that I really enjoy. And during all those listening experience, during the moment of listening, I was listening with them, so I was on a side, so I wasn't looking or watching them. I was just listening the same thing as them. And then once I was checking the video material I had, then I was watching with them. I was listening again with them, watching at their face, and then I really discovered a lot of ways to listen to be there, and to just enjoy this listening experience. So as I was listening with all those listeners, I've been of course listening to a lot of different places, to a lot of different times of the day, a lot of different weather, and the sounds that I've been listening were very diverse too, as well as the listener. And that's something that I liked, to just discover places, discover sounds. I was, of course, recording and listening on my own too when I hadn't in a meeting with the people. So I've been able to record and listen to a lot of different sounds on the Canaveral National Seashore. It could be like the small waves, the small water sounds of the lagoon side, which are as well very different as the ocean waves are very different too. And to listen to all those small differences, I've been able to make a few aquatic recording, a few aquatic listening too, with all those shrimps doing those sounds, but with some dolphins going through too. I've been able to record at dawn, to record at dusk. I've been able to see a big variety of birds and animals, and to record a few owls during the night, or to see a few wild boar in the morning, or to record a few birds going through. Of course, the birds are very different too, depending on the lagoon side or on the seaside. So it was a very big diversity of animals mainly. And then of course you had this proximity with human presence, which could be like some airplanes who are used to go around, or the boats of the fishermen, of the people just going around. So there is always or sometimes this connection with with what is outside of the park, with this human activity and this human life which is getting around. And then of course I was lucky enough to see and record a few rocket launch because of the proximity with the Kennedy Space Center, and this has been like a very nice experience too. That has been hard to record and to do, but I've been able to experience that too. So of course all the sounds that I've been listening and recording, it's very different and very specific to Florida. Of course, because of some specific birds, even if I'm not a big specialist of birds, but I could like listen and record a few things and a few birds that I didn't have the experience. And of course I think every place has its own sound, and it has been very different from other sounds that I've been recording in Europe, or in Mexico, or in South America, where I've been mostly recording, or even in the Amazonian rainforest, of course, or other seashores that I've been recording to, like in the Caribbean Sea, or on the Atlantic coast on South America, or even the Pacific coast. I think really the waves and the ocean is always very different and always has its own sound. So I like this idea to see so many diversity in the sound that I've been recording. Then maybe of the human side, maybe we just have like a small airplane coming around to remind us that they're present, that they're here. Maybe this human sound are not so unique. Maybe the small airplane, I don't know that much about, I don't know anything about airplane, but maybe this small airplane would be very similar to a small airplane somewhere else. Maybe the car passing by, even if it's has its own sound, maybe the US car are sold or in Europe or in South America. So maybe the human sounds are getting not so diverse in a way. But I think on the natural part of the birds park, on the animals, on the ocean, on the wave, I think this will, I hope this will remind like something very specific and something different, because this gave us like a reason to travel, a reason to go to somewhere else, to go somewhere else to record and to listen. And I think that's important to keep this diversity in the sonic world we're living in. So during my residency at ACA, the Soundscape Field Station, I really enjoy not only this act of listening, not only this act of recording, but the meeting of the people, and to be able to meet a lot of people from this area, from New Smyrna Beach, from the neighborhood, and people who are used to come to the Canaveral National Seashore. And that's a way for me to learn a lot from a place. Not only to learn from the animals, from the sound, from what I'm recording, but to learn from the people living there, and to discover new ways of living, of listening, of course, but just of using and enjoying a place like the Canaveral National Seashore. So I think that's something that I really look for when I'm traveling, when I go to a place, is just to learn, to be in a place, take time, slow down, be recording, be listening, but listening in these ideas that I can receive and I can learn from what I'm listening.